Well, good morning. It is April the 28th, 2025, and straight from the highly caffeinated studio, this is According to Willie B., and I, Will Bryce, am your host for the next half hour. And I hope that you will allow me today to take you on a long trip that, when I mention the first town, you're going to roll your eyes. So I'm asking for permission to just bear with me and hear me out. And that town that I'm going to take you to is Memphis, Tennessee. And I can already hear the eye rolls, especially if you've been there, or more especially if you've lived there or near there. You're going to understand what I'm saying. Memphis, to most people, is not the top of the list item to go travel to, especially with their family. Because, statistically, yeah, they're not the most favored when it comes to statistics. Man, say that 4 times. Say it 1 time fast. Statistics on their crime level. And I get that, but what have I always told you when you travel? Keep your wits about you. Be smart. Just keep your eyes open. And, we always went in the daytime and never had any issues. And I think Memphis has a lot to offer. And that's why I'm mentioning it today. So the first thing that you have is, and this would only fit in the city of Memphis. And the more I thought about it, when I talk about this would only fit in Memphis, actually, it would probably fit in, say, Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge. I think it would fit in. It's kind of kitschy, and it's a Bass Pro Shops, but it's in this massive pyramid. And it used to be, if my memory serves me correctly, the pyramid was some sort of entertainment complex, and it sat vacant for some time. Bass Pro Shops come in, bought it out, yada yada. Fast forward, here we go. And then they put a restaurant up in the very top of it. It's called the Lookout Restaurant. And you can actually walk out on this ledge or balcony or walkway, whatever you want to call it, and you can look out over the entire city. And you can also sit at your table while dining and look out through the windows. And I think that's really cool. The food's good, because it being a chain. I don't like to talk about chains, but I like the atmosphere of it. I like the idea of it, if you will. They have this massive aquarium bar, which kind of continues the theme from downstairs with the aquariums and yada yada. So that, it's really cool. It's definitely worth seeing. If you're going to go to Memphis, you have to go to the Bass Pro Shops Pyramid. You haven't lived until you've done that. We're going to talk about a few other things, and then we're going to tackle shall we call it, the elephant in the room. They have a zoo, believe it or not. A lot of people don't know that Memphis has a fairly good sized zoo. They're home to over 3,500 animals. So who knew that the home of the blues, as Memphis is touted, would be home to 3,500 wild animals in a zoo. But it's a very nice zoo. Then you have Beale Street, which is about a 2-mile stretch of bars, dives, clubs, restaurants, shopping, dining, record stores, you name it. It is the home of the blues. And you can find just about anything on Beale Street that your little heart desires, and some things that you're like, I wish I hadn't seen that. But that's all part of the experience. Then we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Graceland. Now, if you've been on the planet more than a week and a half, and I'm sure most of my listeners have, you know that Memphis is home to Elvis. It's Graceland. You can't mention Memphis without thinking or saying Elvis. He was the king of rock and roll, and I think he was the king of Memphis. But you've got Graceland, which continues to explode in growth. I think it is coming close to being a modern day rock and roll Disney World, if you will, I guess, because they just keep opening more and more venues on that property. But in all sincerity, you can see the planes, you can see the cars, you can see all this stuff. But one of the things I really loved was going through the home place. I will tell you, you will not want to pick up any decorating ideas inside to take back home and use in your own house. Very 60s and 70s, carpeting on the wall. Yes, on the wall. But, a lot of their personal artifacts from their life are just on display, and from clothing to, just pretty much everything. And they've made it look like they were just there yesterday and they're just away for the weekend. That's kind of the way they have that house set up. And I think that's really cool. Very nostalgic. I mean, Elvis is not from my genre of music, but still cool nonetheless. And I can see how Elvis fans are just, enthralled with Graceland. Very, very popular attraction. I'm going to tell you about two restaurants in Memphis, which are my favorites. There are a lot of restaurants in Memphis, but these two are my favorite. And they're both on Beale Street. And one is called The Pig on Beale, and it's spelled Beale. But The Pig on Beale, and you guessed it, it's barbecue. But it's Dixieland barbecue, if you will. A lot of pork ribs. They do have brisket, but I'd really like the flavor profile of their coleslaw and their baked beans in the Tennessee area. That was one of my favorite things there. But their ribs were really good. If you like pork ribs, baby back ribs, etc., then The Pig on Beale, that's your place to go. Trust me, I would not steer you wrong on that one. And there's people that say, oh, no, you got to go here, you got to go there. You go anywhere you want, but I'm just saying, if you want the ribs that made me fall in love with Memphis, it's The Pig on Beale. And then the next place I'm going to tell you is called King's Palace. Now, this is, for a lack of an analogy for you, would be a couple of Cajuns went up from Louisiana to Beale Street and put in a restaurant, because it's basically Dixieland meets Cajun food, but it's a very welcomed blend of culinary culture, pastimes, I guess, if you will. But it's still a very good mix. I love their fried fish, their hush puppies. I could sit and snack on those things all day long. But very, very good. But that's my two favorite places to eat in Memphis. The other thing that I like about Memphis is you have more than just Memphis. You could easily spend an entire weekend in Memphis and probably not see everything. But you could also venture outside of Memphis and get some other cultural experiences. And the town that I'm going to tell you about next, if you're from Collierville, and I know that I do have some listeners from Collierville, they're going to chuckle when I say this. I consider, from the very moment I first landed in Collierville, that it was like the modern day Mayberry. So it was almost like you took the Andy Griffith Show, fast forwarded a few years, and dropped it in Tennessee. It is, to me, it is an absolute modern day Mayberry. And if you don't know, and I know I've said this about a lot of small towns, but I'm telling you, if you don't know anybody in Collierville when you get there, if you go to so much as a diner or a coffee shop, I promise you, you're going to know somebody before you come back home. It's just that kind of town. I have never met more of the nicest people in my life than I have in Collierville. And we were only there a couple of years, but I have so many friends that are so close to me in Collierville, and just absolutely great people, great place to live, great schools. You've got a downtown square that is the old school. When you think of a small town Dixieland Square, that's Collierville. They have this little like a gazebo and everything in the little park that sits in the middle of the square. They do live events constantly. They're always having something going on that square. They got a farmer's market. There's actually a good place to eat on the square, one of my favorites, and it's called Dyer's Cafe. Now, if you like burgers, that's the place to go get a burger. But more than that, if you like a good milkshake, yeah, if you don't do anything else in Collierville, you have to go to Dyer's Cafe and have a milkshake. You'll thank me later. One of the absolute best milkshakes I have ever had in my entire life. I kid you not. And if I'm saying that, then you got to know it's got to be good. But it's they've got burgers. It's your typical diner. They could do lunch and etc. But there's a lot of really good restaurants in Collierville. But on the square, that's my favorite, is the Dyer's Cafe. They also have a huge antique mall called Sheffield's Antiques. Oh, place is huge, and you can pretty much find anything. Especially if, let's say, if you're over 40 years old, you're probably going to be picking stuff up constantly, going, "Hey, I had one of these. I had one. Hey, I remember this." So, if nothing else, it's a walk down nostalgia lane. But definitely check out Sheffield's Antiques. There's also Raven and Lily. It's like a southern comfort food, if you will, and very good. The service, the atmosphere, you just can't beat it. And it is a their doorway is well traveled in that town, because people absolutely love the Raven and Lily. I'll tell you another little favorite, and it was actually outside of the square, was one of my all-time favorites of restaurants in and around Collierville, and it's called the Skybox. And if I told you it was a sports bar, I'd be telling you wrong. It kind of is, but it is this restaurant that just is so creative when it comes to the menu. And let me tell you, if you like pork skins, oh man, you get a platter of them. They got different seasonings. They got different sauces you can dip them in. That makes me want to just get on a plane and go to Collierville just for that. I kid you not. That is really good. And then you got Jim's Place, which is another white tablecloth. It's kind of a Greek American, if you will, but very good. I'm not a big Greek type food person, but because it's a kind of a Greek American fusion, there were several things on the menu that I really liked there. But if you like Italian, there is David Brisante's Italian restaurant is really good. And these are all family-run, family-owned restaurants, and you'll always see the owners in there because, again, like I said, it's a modern-day Mayberry. There's a ton of different realtors there that are just phenomenal. They look at things more than just selling a piece of real estate. Just a couple that come to mind is Brandy Merrick and Dana. I'm telling you, those ladies, they knock it out of the park, and they're more than a realtor. They're invested in that town, and that's one of the reasons I call it a modern day Mayberry. But definitely check out Collierville. You won't be disappointed. There's also, if you go downtown, and because you're going to go down there and get that milkshake, so you might as well, as you're going to the square, you're going to see a steam train, and it's called Frisco 1351. Now, this train has a ton of history and way more time than what we've got to talk about. But definitely check out that train. They keep it up. It's always paint. It's always got a fresh coat of paint. It looks like it's ready to run. I would almost bet they keep the fuel tank full just in case. But it's really cool. It just adds to the atmosphere of the entire town. But definitely check out Collierville. Don't let that one slip by you. You're already in Memphis. You're only 22, 23 minutes away. So you would have to go through there anyway to go to this next town I'm going to tell you about. So you might as well and grab that milkshake. But there's a town just down, what I call down the street from Collierville, and it's called Germantown. Now, Germantown is full of history. Once again, another town full of history. There is the houses that line the streets going into Germantown. It's just like you've been transported into another country. A lot of German architect, if you will. And just really cool town. This is not your modern day Mayberry. If I had to give it a name, it's more like, and I know I'm going to date myself here, but it's more like maybe the Stepford Wives or the Dynasty, or the old show Dallas. It's somewhere along that line. That's Germantown. I know some people in Germantown. They're going to be like, "Why would you say that?" I'm like, "Well, just the way I view it." But hey, like I said, this is an opinionated podcast, and I got my opinion for whatever it's worth, right? So, but they also have some great restaurants there that are mom and pop owned. One other thing about Germantown is they are a huge equestrian history town. They do the Germantown charity horse show. So if you're into horses, if you're into the whole equestrian lifestyle, go on Google and check out Germantown, Tennessee, and I think you'll get more than you bargained for. But there's a couple places there. One, which was one of my favorites, is Southern Social. And it's another one of those where their doorway is very well trodden by the locals. Again, you want to know somebody that's local, go in there and hang with the locals, and it won't be long, about an hour, and you'll be one of them. But there's the Southern Social, which is like an upscale Dixieland menu, if you will. Their desserts, or whatever you do, save room for dessert at Southern Social. I guarantee you will not be sorry. There's also the Moondance Grill if you're hungry for a steak, because they've got some of the best steaks in the area. I kid you not. I don't know where they're getting their beef from, but wow, man, there are some good steaks. My other lunchtime favorite, or I'm actually going to say lunch/brunch, is Forest Hill Grill. Now, can't tell you how many times I've eaten at this little cafe, but they have, hands down, some of the best chicken and waffles I've ever eaten. And that was actually the first place that I had, believe it or not, that I'd ever tried chicken and waffles. I'm like, well, I like chicken and I like waffles, and put them together. And I was like, wow. And so every chicken and waffle that I've had since then, I always compare it to that restaurant, the Forest Hill Grill. But they've got they do a great brunch. They do a lunch. They've got a very diverse menu. Service and everything's on point, very friendly. Absolutely love the place. So before I let you go, I've got one more place to tell you about, one more town. But understand that this one is, again, just about another 15 minutes away. And depending on where you're at in Collierville or Germantown, it could be closer. But it's not in Tennessee. It's actually in Mississippi. That's because its borders right up against Tennessee. But it's called Olive Branch. Now, if if I had to say Olive Branch was known for something, I would my thing to say would be that Olive Branch is known on the former home of Jerry Lee Lewis. Now, if you just left Memphis and you've been to see the king of rock and roll, and you've been to the home of the blues, well, you can't skip out on Olive Branch and miss the home of Jerry Lee Lewis. I mean, come on. One of the greatest piano players that ever lived. So definitely go check that out. It's definitely a good stop on the map to check out. They also have the Bank Plus Amphitheater, a lot of great concerts, etc., shows, what have you, that perform there, and a very neat venue. I'm going to tell you about two restaurants in Olive Branch, and one, and I think they have, if I remember correctly, they have two locations, and it's called Huey's, Hueys. Now, you could say it's a sports bar, because it kind of is. I guess, that's what they tout themselves as. But they're not your typical sports bar. The food, it's a little higher grade food than your typical sports bar. Sometimes sports bars are, hey, we got cheese sticks, we got pretzels, we got this. But Huey's is more, they do a great job on burgers. They've got a lot of different kinds of burgers. But they've got their onion rings. Oh, man. If you like onion rings, man, you get a platter of them onion rings that they have. Wow, man. I'm telling you, those things are, I could sleep on those things. But, and there's also, and it's kind of on the border. I still consider it to be Olive Branch. Some people correct me and say, no, that's in South Haven. But whatever it is, it's another burger. I know I've seemed to have concentrated on burgers, and it's not on purpose. But it's called Wimpy's. You remember the old cartoon Popeye? I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a burger today. And so it's Wimpy's. And it's just your basic hamburger or cheeseburger. And I don't know what they do differently, but it's like a very nostalgic burger. And that's the only way I know to describe it to you. But if you pass one of them, I think there's two locations. And if you pass one that says it's Wimpy's Hamburgers, you got, even if you're not hungry, pop in there and have one anyway. You won't regret it. The last stop on the map I'm going to tell you about today, and I saved the best for last. And I've mentioned these people before, and so I couldn't cover Memphis, I couldn't cover Collierville and all these other towns and Olive Branch without reminding you of a business that is located there in Olive Branch that is called Crawford Equipment. Now, they sell pretty much every kind of restaurant equipment you can imagine. And it's not just restaurant equipment. I mean, maybe you have an outdoor kitchen at home and you want some kind of piece of equipment for that. I'm telling you, these folks, they are some of the nicest people that you will ever deal with in business. And I guarantee you, if you call them and you talk to Lauren and you tell her that I sent you, I promise you, they will take great care of you, whether I told you to send you or not, because that's just what they do. They are very invested in their customer base, and they wouldn't have been in business as long as they have. They wouldn't be as successful as they are if they had not been taking care of their customers. I did, however, make one faux pas in this podcast, and so I'm not going to end it without telling you about it. And it was actually in Memphis, and I'm not sure how it escaped my memory, but it did. And there is a hotel in Memphis called the Peabody. That's right, Peabody, Peabody Hotel in Memphis. And if you know the hotel, you know what I'm about to say. They have this family of ducks. That's right, quack, quack, that live up on the upper floor, And every day at a certain time, I don't remember what the time was, but every day these ducks get in the elevator with assistance, of course, with a bell captain, and they ride the elevator down to the lobby, and they march single file through the lobby to the fountain that's in the lobby, and then they enjoy themselves for a few hours in the fountain. Now, I've always heard my entire life, make sure you have your ducks in a row. So I guess the Peabody Hotel took that literally, because those folks have their ducks in a row, and it's a really fancy old hotel, and it is really neat. A lot of exhibits and stuff throughout the hotel lobby. But that whole duck thing coming through the lobby, that actually started back in the 1930s. And the funny part is it actually started out with duck decoys in a fountain. So, I guess they've had their ducks in a row for a long time, whether they're real or fake. So there's that. But that's all we have today. We're running out of time here, but I appreciate each and every single one of you for listening. Our listener base continues to grow, and I'm so grateful, and I appreciate each and every single one of you. But until next week, don't forget to caffeinate and conquer, and have a great day. Bye-bye.